Hello, everybody. So today I'm very pleased, and I think we all are, to have Oliver here, Oliver Cowmeadow. And I'm really looking forward to some meaningful and in-depth conversation. So I want to just have a quick preface before Oliver begins. Norio has wonderful news to share with us.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Ginat. Great to see everyone. Um, a couple of weeks ago, I had a recent CT scan. For those who aren't familiar, I was diagnosed with rare kind of cancer 2.5 years ago. But anyway, it's according to the scan, there's no longer any trace of cancer, even though it had spread through my lymph system. So now it's no longer there. And basically, I used the ideas that I grew up with, Giorgio Sala's ideas and stuff, and I think we don't understand what cancer is. Definitely, modern medicine does it, but the clue is that Giorgio Sala says there's only one disease, and it's called arrogance, and that there's all diseases are just a symptom of that one disease. So, starting from ground zero, that's how I looked at the whole thing, and I saw it as an adventure, not as something negative or shouldn't happen or wrong or anything like that. I saw it as just, so here I am and still discovering. Okay,
Well,
thank you, everyone.
we couldn't have a better introduction for Oliver. Thank you. That's excellent. I mean, fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent. Mr. Oliver.
Great news, Noria. Thank you. Okay, so going to talk about the cycle of life, and to really take a kind of wider view, of this life and of our many lifetimes, and what happens in between lives, really to gain a wider perspective on this life. It feels like this is why we want to look more at the spiritual side of things, because it gives us a wider perspective on this life, wider than if we're just looking at our kind of physical, emotional, mental needs. I want to say that I welcome questions. If you have questions while we go along, I'm happy for you to ask questions. If there are too many, then I'll say let's come back to that question later on, or something like that. But I really want this to be a discussion, not a lecture. And we're also going to do some practical exercises, because I feel that I don't want this to be like a heady theoretical talk. I want it to be as experiential as possible. So we're going to do a few exercises as we go along as well, to try and make it kind of as experiential and kind of meaningful for you as possible. Okay, so you'd like some background. Thanks for flagging that up. So I was actually going to say something about how I was going to present this. I'm really mostly talking from my own experience, rather than theory or what I've read or what other people have said. I'm a strong believer in us trusting our own intuition and own experiences. What happened to me was that about 30 years ago, I started having some experiences of Kundalini energy, this powerful energy that comes up from the base chakra and comes up. And at first it was very much opening up my heart, and then it started going through my neck and opening up in my head. And then I started it was very challenging at times. It was very challenging, feeling completely empty, my mind completely still. It's kind of throws up the challenge of, well, who am I? I thought I was this body, this mind, this father, etc. And all that disappeared. It took me months and actually a few years to really to really integrate that experience. I'm not saying that this is anything particularly wonderful. This is just what's been happening to human beings for, I think, at least tens of thousands of years, and as happens to many people now. But the effect that that had on me of being able to really still my mind was to really be able to explore the more subtle world. The thing about the spiritual world is it's subtle. You know, the physical world, the emotional world is easy to experience and feel and be sure of. The spiritual world is much more subtle, and one of the blocks is our own thinking mind. And it is very helpful to be able to still this thinking mind for us to be able to step beyond our physical, emotional, mental being, and really tune into our deeper self, which we might call our deeper self. Some people might call our soul. I'm going to use the word soul as our kind of individual spirit that is moving through this lifetime and many lifetimes. And various things started happening to me. I started having memories of past lives, and I then went and studied a whole load of, a whole system of past life healing, where we can, because a lot of our physical, emotional pains and problems that we are experiencing in this life, we've actually brought forward from previous lives. So there's a lot of people out there, who can guide people into previous lives. And I found that amazing, because it made me realize there's a continuity. We may be aware of the continuity in this lifetime, but there's also a continuity over many lifetimes. And why are we interested in the things we're interested in this lifetime? For example, why do we get into macrobiotics? For me, I found out past lives in the East, yin and yang. As soon as I first heard it in a lecture from Michio, it just clicked. Yep, this is what explains everything. Yeah. Why? Because this is a system which I'd used in quite a few lifetimes before. So we bring kind of gifts and understandings from the past, and we also bring pains and, you could say, unresolved karma from the past as well. Which we're still trying to work on in this lifetime. So for me, this gave me a much wider perspective. For me, some events which happened about 2,500 years ago were very unresolved and were having a big effect on this lifetime. So I've spent a certain amount of time through past life healing, through emotional counseling, through various means to heal that, so I can at last solve that karma and move beyond it. So I laugh because it feels like the wider we look, the smaller we realize this lifetime is, and how much vaster not only the universe is, but also how much vaster our life actually is, our soul life actually is. And I then learned, somebody taught me how to talk to spirit guides, which I found very difficult at first. I used to have to meditate for ages to get into the right frame of mind. And then gradually became easier and easier. And I get a lot of guidance from various spirit guides. This is something that we can all learn to do. It's very, very useful, because then you just have some guidance, available all the time. Great to get guidance from people in life. It's nothing like guidance from people in life, but we can also get guidance, from the spirit world. And I'm sure many of you have maybe experienced that. Sometimes it just comes as just fleeting insights or instructions as to what we need to do or not do. And we may wonder where that comes from. Actually, we all have spirit guides who are wanting to get through to us, and they get through when they can. Sometimes it's when we are just waking up in the morning and we are alert, and yet our thinking mind hasn't started working, and they can get like a thought in there, you know. So you know, we can all, you know, listen for this kind of this guidance. And then that really kind of opened up the whole kind of spiritual world to me quite a bit. Then I started having experiences. So I'll answer you in a second, Clara. This kind of opened me up when people in the dying process, you know, both before and during and after, and really being aware of what is happening on a soul level, on a spiritual level, through that whole process. And that's something I want to talk quite a lot about, because I think it's something that our society is or modern society, maybe I should say, is really pretty ignorant of. And it's a crucial time. You know, the two biggest, you know, two very important times are our transition from this lifetime into the spirit world, and then back from the spirit world into our next life. These are two very important times, because what happens at these transitions has a big effect on what happens in our future. So it's really good for us to be more aware of what happens in these transition times. How do we do these transitions well? So I want to talk quite a lot about the transitions out of this lifetime into the spirit world, and also from the spirit world back into this lifetime, and, you know, kind of do our best to connect with that. And yes, somebody was asking about, is our kind of soul spirit, is this part of our intuition? I think it is one part of our intuition. I think intuition is, you could define as knowledge which just comes instantaneously. You can get a word or a sentence or a whole, some people get a whole poem or picture or book to write, or, you know, and it just comes suddenly. And I think that can come from different places. It can come from inside of us. It can come from our gut feelings. It can come from our hearts. It can come from, you know, our own wisdom. And definitely our intuition can also come from our soul, our deep self. I don't know how you feel about the way modern society is going. One of the things which I do get frustrated about is the way science is thought to be the king of everything. Everything has to be science-based, proved. Well, science only can really study the physical world. How do we explore everything else, which is much more? You know, as George Michio said, you know, the spirit world is much, much, much bigger than the physical world. How do we explore all of that? With our intuition, and, you know, our common sense. We need our common sense, which is more, I think, our gut feeling. And we need our intuition to guide us through life. You know, science can't guide us through the most important aspects of our life. So, you know, I just, you know, I kind of opened up to the spirit world to some extent, around what happens around death, what happens around the beginning of life, also encountering stuck spirits, their kind of stages when we die, when we leave the body. The first stage is where we stay around, close to the body and close to that place, and then the second stage is we then move up, you know, where we really need to go, should go more into a higher level, more in the spirit world. But some people, if they are very troubled or attached, can't leave the earthly plane, because they're too attached. They can't let go, and they stay around. And this is what some people describe as ghosts, or stuck spirits. And unfortunately, there's a lot of those around, and they need healing as well. So when I encounter them, I have a chat with them, do some counseling. I've also studied emotional counseling. So it's kind of like doing an emotional counseling session on them to help them let go of whatever is keeping them attached, and to help them move on. So I do some of that kind of work. Sometimes I do work for other people if they've lost someone, if someone's passed on, and if it feels appropriate, then I may, and there's a need for a conversation between the person who's in a body and the one who's not in a body, then I can, if it's appropriate and with permissions, then on both sides, then I can kind of facilitate a conversation. I just want to say a few things. I don't feel that me being able to do this, in some ways it seems to be rare, but I don't feel it's anything exceptional or to put myself on a pedestal or anything. I feel it's just makes me feel even humbler. And so sometimes I give talks or do different kinds of ways of healing using this perception, because it just really helps. It can really help people and really help spirits at different times. So I'm going to something else I want to say is I'm really going to be talking primarily from my own experience. It seems to tally with other people's experiences that I read about or talk to. So I'm just talking almost solely from my own experience. I'm sure this is just, I've only experienced a very small part of what there is to experience on the spirit side, obviously. But I think what I'm going to say, when I give talks on this, seems to be useful for people. You may have some burning questions inside about what happens around death or between lives or coming in, and if I can, I want to answer those questions, because I want this to be really as relevant and helpful to you personally. As I say, not just a kind of theory talk. I want to really make this useful to you personally. So that's a little bit about my journey. It's been very challenging at times. It also gives me a lot of peace. It feels a bit like I have one foot in this world and one foot in the other world. What actually happens practically is that when we come into a life, a kind of veil comes down so that we can really focus on what happens in this life. If we could remember everything that happened in all our previous lives, it would be very difficult to kind of really ground and get into our present life. But for a lot of people, that veil becomes thin, and you can start seeing through it, and you can start exploring the spirit world. And I think it's available to anyone who really wants to experience it. Yeah. So, any questions so far? You have to unmute, Judy.
One, I got it.
Yeah.
I was typing it in here. I thought that you would want it that way, but if you want it verbally, is there any way we can know that death is coming? Any way we can know?
I think if we really tune into our deeper intuition, it's what kind of Clara was asking about, our kind of, the more we can tune in on our soul level, to our deeper self, the more knowing there is. Just for example, Michio Kushi, you can just see, looking at him, he can, he and other great teachers, they can just tap into all this information. It's not like they are just creating all this information. It's just they can tap into all this information that is out there, and this is what we can learn to do a bit as well. So the more we reach that kind of soul level, the more we get knowledge coming through, we get skills and knowledge coming through. And then, maybe even around that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
No,
then-
I've heard a lot of people, who get intuitions, shortly before someone else could die, or their relative is very ill, and then they suddenly get the feeling, oh, they've just passed, and I need to get in touch, because these things that we can, the more we're in touch with the energy world and the spirit world, then the more we can feel things which are happening at a distance, and even in the future as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Scary knowing the future. It's like there's certain meditations which I've been kind of invited to know the future, and it's just like, how much of the future do I really want to know? Do I really want to see the rest of this life? Do I really want to see my death? Do I really want to see what happens after that? It's just like, really? Sounds, kind of, our curiosity wants to go there. But actually, how much do we want to know? How much can we take, of this kind of deep wisdom? Yeah. Yeah, and any other questions?
You have a question from Cindy. If someone commits suicide, do they still hang around for a while? Is their transition different from someone who dies from illness, accident, etc., old age?
So I'll come back to that, because I want to describe in some detail what happens at the end of this life in that transition, and so I'll talk about that then, because it'll be really relevant then. So what I'd like to do now is to just meditate for a couple of minutes to get us out of our thinking heads and more into our deep self. Because then I think it's gonna make this talk more available, maybe. So what I'd like you to do is just kind of sit back and make yourself physically comfortable, and we want to leave behind whatever is going on here. So just putting any pens down, relaxing, taking your hands down, putting them in your lap, and shutting your eyes, and take a few deep breaths down into your abdomen to really ground ourselves in our body. So as you breathe in, you take your breath down into your belly. Connecting with your body, feeling your feet on the ground or wherever they are, and feeling your legs, feeling your pelvis, your sitting bones, your belly, and feeling your spine, holding up your torso, being aware of your chest and your shoulders, arms, hands. Feeling your neck and head. And then feel your whole physical body. And let's say thank you to our physical bodies for being here, for carrying us, for carrying our spirit, carrying our consciousness. And then take some breaths, a few breaths into your chest, into your heart. And let's turn our attention to our emotional self. Maybe you can feel some emotions happening in your chest right now. Or maybe you can remember some emotions from earlier today: sadness, joy, frustration, anger, tears, whatever. Be aware of your emotional self. And let's thank our emotional being, our emotional part. Thank you. You're an important part of me. Thank you for being there. And let's turn our attention to our thinking mind. Observe any thoughts going through your head right now. Watch each thought start and run and then disappear. Maybe the next thought comes. And feel how amazing it is that we can think, understand, have ideas. This is an amazing part of ourselves. And let's say thank you to this part, our thinking mind. And now let's go deeper. Feel that part of you that has been watching your body, watching your emotions, watching your thoughts. Your consciousness, your awareness. So even when there are no bodily sensations, emotions, or thoughts, our consciousness is always there, observing. And if your thoughts start coming in, see if you can let go and come back to feeling this deep part of yourself, your consciousness, your awareness. Okay? See if you can stay with that part of yourself while you move your body a little bit, become aware of your body. And then gradually open your eyes. So you're more sitting in this place of kind of peacefulness, just feeling present, feeling aware of what's happening on screen around you. So this is kind of tapping into our intuition, our deeper intuition, you know, our more soul self. So let's see if we can stay more in this kind of place for the next hour or so. So our understanding in this place comes more from feeling rather than from thought processes. We're so used to using logical thought. This comes, our intuition comes more as feelings. And then sometimes we put those feelings into words. Yeah. So let's just see if we can stay in this more feeling stuff. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this transition that happens at the end of this life. And quite, you know, people often ask, well, how do you know what is true? How do you know what I'm saying is true or not true? It's from the feeling you have inside. It's some things may resonate and just feel, yeah, this really feels right. This resonates with me. This feels true to me. Okay, so that's your truth. Other things you may feel, I don't resonate with that at all, can't relate to it. Okay, that's okay. So you don't know about that. Other things you may even feel, well, I'm really not sure about that. I think Oliver may have got that bit wrong. Okay, that's all right too. So trust yourself. Okay, this is the only way we can explore the subtle world, is by learning to trust our intuition. Yeah. One of the most challenging things for me in learning how to channel, to talk to spirit guides, to do work in the spirit world, is distinguishing between what is coming from me and my own thoughts and what is coming from outside. And that is subtle and difficult. So I've practiced that for years and years. The best advice I have is to really develop that intuition is, first of all, ground yourself in your body like we did. See if you can empty your mind and then listen very carefully. Okay, so how do we prepare for this ending of our life? So quite fashionable these days to write your bucket list, things you want to do in this life before we go. Great, but I would say at a deeper level, a more inward level, let's ask ourselves the question, what do I need to finish up before I leave this lifetime? What do I need to finish? Because the ideal is that we reach the end of this life feeling peaceful. That there aren't lots of things which are undone, because that troubles us, and that's going to give us a more troubled passing. And also, it feels to me that, you know, we have so many amazing experiences in this life, and we want to make the most of this lifetime. So when we leave it, we feel, wow, what a good lifetime. I did the most important things that I really wanted to do, and I finished up any mess that I'd made. And we all make a mess, don't we? We all hurt people, we all hurt other people, we've all been dishonest in situations, we've not done things which we really should have done. Yeah, haven't we? So, so the first thing to do in our preparation is to make a list. What do I need to do to finish off? Maybe I need to apologize to this person. Maybe I need to fess up to this person and say, actually, yeah, I behaved badly. I didn't tell you the whole truth. Whatever it is, you know, let's make a list. Let's be conscious of this. It may feel really uncomfortable looking at what we've messed up, but we are going to have a much easier passing and a better time afterwards if we resolve everything which you know, we finish things off. So as I say this, I'm just thinking of one person in particular from my past. I really need to tell them something. Once we passed on, it's too late. So you know, really suggest that you make a list of what's unresolved for you, and there may be other things. You know, you maybe want to see certain people, you want to give your love to certain people, you may want to thank certain people, you may want to be clear about your will, about what's going to happen to your possessions, about what you want to happen after you've died, your funeral, how you're buried or burnt or whatever. Yeah, so that's the first thing. Then kind of coming up to the time that we pass on. I'm sure many of you experience being with loved ones who've passed on, and you know, experienced what a special time this is. Of course, there can be some sadness or grief, but on a spiritual level, it's a very special time because if we're tuned in, we can really witness how the body and the spirit go in different directions. At the beginning of our lifetime, our body, through our parents, and our spirit came together, and that's what creates life. And then what happens at death is our body and our spirit separate. So I remember one of the first times I experienced death was when I was with my father. He was in hospital, been in hospital a couple of weeks, and he'd gone into a kind of coma for about 18 hours or something. So it was clear what was happening. I really wanted to be there when he passed on. I think being there when people pass on, it's such a good experience for us. It's also can be helpful for the person passing on. And I really experienced just that separation, and actually the fact that there is no death. All it is a separation. The spirit and the body are separating. The spirit is going on its long journey. The spirit never dies. You know, this is what various spiritual teachers, Jesus, etc., have said. There's no such thing as death. The body's going to die and go back to the earth, but the spirit moves on. So very, very special time to observe. And the first stage is that the spirit stays close to the body. You can read about people's near-death experiences where they've come out of the body in this way. Maybe their heart has stopped or something like that, and then maybe something happens that somebody starts the heart again, and then they come back into the body, and they describe this experience of being out of their body and they're looking down on their body. This is a big transition, as you can maybe imagine. I'm in a body, and then I'm out of a body looking down, and I'm looking down on my body that I've identified with and been in for quite a long time. So this is a big transition, and for some people this is an easy transition, particularly if they were prepared for death, if they've done preparation. Particularly often what happens if people know that they're approaching their death in the next few years or months or days, is they start doing more spiritual practices. It's like they start coming more into the spiritual world, having a stronger contact with the spiritual world. Sometimes people have this kind of really beauty about them in those last days or weeks or months. because they've got more spiritual energy coming through because that connection is stronger. Has anybody observed that? Yeah, anybody observed that? And any friends, family, kind of shortly before they pass on?
Yeah, I've witnessed it a few times when I worked in a hospital, sat with many a patient who were on their own through their last sort of, minutes, hours. And
Oh,
there is
wow.
definitely a very spiritual change that goes,
Yeah.
and you can feel them in the room still.
Yeah.
When you're washing the bodies and preparing that, you can still feel them there. It's a real privilege.
Yeah. What fantastic work that was that you did, Cindy.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky.
Yeah,
Very
what
lucky to be
fantastic
part
work.
of that.
Because in our material society, they think, well, okay, once you're dead, then that's it. With my father, when it was become clear he was going to die, I said, look, I need to sit with my father for 4 hours. My intuition said it was needed 4 hours. So I went and talked to the nurse and they said, no way, we need the bed. As soon as he's dead, he's off to the freezer. And I said, I'm sorry, but I really, really need to sit with him somewhere for 4 hours. I don't mind where it is. And she wangled the rules so that I could sit with him in his little hospital, in his hospital bed in his room for 4 hours. Because this is a really, really important time. So that respect and probably love and resonance with their presence that you had, Cindy, is very helpful for the spirit moving on. So if we can sit with people afterwards, because the spirit will be around, typically anything from 2 to 6 hours, maybe 8 hours. I also sat with my sister, and she was around for about 5-6 hours. I sat with a friend who'd done a lot of preparation. She got into macrobiotics because she had metastasized cancer. And she almost made it with macrobiotics, but she didn't quite. And she was such a spiritual person. And a few days before she was going to pass on, she got some family and close friends around, and we all had fish and chips. She wanted to have fish and chips for one of, which is very kind of English staple. We all kind of ate some fish and chips around the bed, and she was so prepared for passing on. And I was in the hospice where she was. I just missed the time when she passed on, but I was quickly in the room, and she was almost gone on to the next stage, which is after some hours in the room, you then pass to a kind of higher level, more into the spirit world, where there's a whole welcoming party, and it feels very light and very beautiful. Because she'd done the work, to prepare for her death, then that period of time was much faster. She really didn't need any help, but sometimes people need some help. Maybe they're having problems letting go. Oh, I didn't say this to this person, or I really wasn't ready to go, for some reason. And then if one's able to, it's very good. And you may hear them just as this very subtle words coming to you. So do what you can to put them at peace. Maybe you can say, look, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to your daughter who couldn't get here. What would you like me to tell her? You may be able to give peace to the spirit. My sister started telling me what flowers she wanted at her funeral. That was really important to her. The colors of the flowers. She was an artist, or that was part of who she was. So she was telling me the colors, all the different colors of the flowers she wanted to have. Even if you can't, communicate, then just your presence at that time can be really helpful, because if you can imagine that your loved one has come out of their body, and they're thinking, what the hell is going on? And to have one or several people there that they love is really comforting. When we're going through difficult times, it's really comforting to have some loved ones around, isn't it? That's when we really need loved ones. So just sit there, and probably at a certain point you'll feel, they've just moved on. So I remember with my sister, it was about 5-6 hours, and I just felt in such a beautiful spiritual space, talking to her a little bit. And then when she went, that's when I felt my emotional grief, because I felt, okay, now she's really gone. And that's when we felt some sadness come up.
We have a question from Marion.
I
Sure.
have a couple of experiences with people dying. One of them was with my father, and I knew I had to be there at his death. I knew I wouldn't be able to manage it if somebody told me he died. I had to be there. So I had his urologist tell me when he thought he would die, which is what I figured out from the numbers anyway. And so I was there, and I could see that he was fighting between letting go and staying in the world. And I could see that. And I realized to myself that what he needed, my brother had been to Africa and wasn't gonna cancel his trip, even though I said Dad's dying, and so I said, okay, I'm gonna put my brother on the phone, because my father is going to want to hear from my brother that my brother will take care of my mother and me. And I told that to my brother, and I don't know what my brother said to my father, but then not long after that, he actually passed. And that was one experience I had. And the other one was in the Jewish tradition. There's a ritual of cleaning of the body after the person dies. And I was part of the group that cleaned women's bodies after they died. And you could feel how the people were in their lives by what their newly passed body was. I mean, this one was really sweet. You just could tell what kind of person they were. It was really very interesting.
Yeah.
And we sat with the bodies afterwards, and I remember you're supposed to put the shroud, white clothes, into the coffin with the person. You're supposed to put the envelope, the cloth envelope that the clothes come in, under the person's head. And we forgot to put the cloth thing under the head. And the woman wanted to open the casket, and it was really clear you're not supposed to open the casket once it's closed. And this woman didn't want to get caught having forgotten to put the thing in the casket, so she was insisting we open the casket. So we opened the casket, and then both of us at the same time felt like, oh my God, that was wrong, because the spirit is now coming back. I mean, we could feel that so strongly, both of us independently. So then we just, we closed the casket, put our hands on the casket, put candles on the casket, it was really a very powerful feeling.
So thank you. That's such a good example of, how we need to take a lot of care, in those hours after someone has passed on. We want the body to be in a peaceful place as well, for maybe 12, 24 hours. And while that separation is happening, to really facilitate that separation happening.
I want to add something, if it's okay.
Sure, Janice.
Okay. My mother, I'm Jewish also, and I was unable to be with my mother because she was in Oregon. I was in California. But when I went to Oregon, I asked to be part of the cleaning of my mother. And I felt like she was there the entire time that I was talking to her, and she was smiling, and I let out a lot of things, and I told her how wonderful she was, even though it was a day later. And then we closed the casket, and my sister, older sister, who used to do this for people, but never for her mother, came in and said, I want to see Mom. So we opened the casket, and my mother's smile was gone. And like you said, she had left the casket. She was there. Her spirit was there the whole time we were cleaning her. And then when we put the lid on, she was gone. But from there, we went to the celebration of life. And I kept seeing her there. So it's like she had left the casket and gone to where I could see her. So it was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, of course, you know, when someone has died, we're maybe dealing with our own grief and so on. But primarily, we want to be focused on what is helpful for the spirit at that time. You know, and I think there's a lot of tradition, you know, different traditions around the world, which originally were really to help the spirit passing on, as well as the people who've lost. But hey, it's great to hear these examples, and it's just, isn't it amazing how we can tune in at these times? Yes, Sylvia, you have to unmute.
Thank you. I wanted to add an example from 1991. My client and his wife had gone on a vacation and went off the diet during that vacation, and it reversed all the gains of the year and threw him into the end. And we were with him for a long time before he passed. And the point at which Martha said, Jeff had a good life, was the point at which he left. Because that was the first time that she put him in the past and no longer live in the living. And then we saw immediately that both of us saw that was the point at which he passed. And then the question was what to do. We were in a hospital, and my little 4-year-old was there. Well, maybe she was 5 with us coloring. And first thing we did was we took him out of the hospital clothes. We put him back in the vacation clothes, very colorful and happy. And then I told Martha that we should call a Buddhist priest, a monk, to come here. And that's what she did. We found one that came to the hospital and did chanting for about an hour, because it was important for him to know that he had passed. And that's how we did it. We didn't want him immediately to go into any morgue drawer, because it would be just so confusing and terrifying for him.
Yeah.
But then when we, the 3 of us left the hospital, he was with us. Both of us knew he was with us. And she used my bed and breakfast for a few weeks while she was recovering. And he was with us.
Okay.
So first thing is, you know, make them happy, make them know that they're free and that it's a good place. And that we can accept their passing.
So important not to hang on to them, because one reason why they may hesitate to move on is if they feel that we're hanging on, that we still need them. So we have to freely let go of them.
And there actually have been very dangerous practices where, like, some severe burn victim made the decision to move on, but people in this world were trying to hold them here. That's very dangerous. If they made the decision to pass, you have to help them with that. It has to be unselfish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let me thank you for some of your experiences. So let me kind of answer a few more of your questions about, you know, what happens, you know, for people that commit suicide, or maybe people that pass very suddenly. And we've talked about people who have maybe anticipated that they were going to die, and they can make preparation for it. But some people may die suddenly in an accident, or maybe being killed or whatever. You know, unfortunately, in wars, this is true of a great number of people. And then there's a lot of shock. And one thing, as you mentioned, Sylvia, it can happen that people sometimes spirits don't realize that they've died, and they don't realize where they are, and they certainly don't realize what needs to happen next. So they're in this place of struggling. And they're kind of caught between the earthly world and, possibly people that love them here, and the spirit world who are calling them upwards, but they're stuck. And there's a lot of stuck spirits around, and I know I just encounter them all over the place. Especially when I go on holiday, I think, because I'm just exploring new places. And so, to give one example, I was on these little islands off the English coast, and there was this plaque where, in the last war, so 75 years ago or something, a seaplane had crashed, and it was commemorating 4 or 5 people that had died in the accident. And then I became aware of this spirit around, and it was about a 21, 22-year-old young man, and he was the pilot. He was trying to take off in this plane, and the plane crashed, and everybody was killed. And he felt so much guilt and remorse, and he felt that it was his fault that he'd killed his friends, that he just couldn't leave. He just couldn't leave this place. So, he was still caught. So with him, actually, I talked with him, and can't quite remember. I think I may have got some help from another source, like from a spirit as well. But what we worked out was actually it wasn't his fault. It was a fault with the plane, which no one could have prevented. And that released him from his guilt and remorse. And then I said, well, look up, look up. You can see the light. This is where you need to go now. Just look up. What feeling do you get from that place? It feels wonderful. It feels bright. It feels loving. It feels welcome. So, okay, then that's the place you need to go to. So, that's kind of like an example of what can happen. On the same holiday, there was this little old building, 2 floors, bedroom downstairs, living room upstairs. I went in. The bedroom downstairs was so creepy. I thought, there's no way I'm sleeping in there. I slept on the sofa upstairs. I was pretty exhausted, and I was just trying to have a nice holiday. And I thought, okay, I've got to find out what this is about. The spirit of an old woman who'd lived there over 100 years before. She was living there with her son, very poor. She grew potatoes. He went out on a boat to catch fish. And one day, the weather was bad. They lacked food. She said, "You have to go and catch the fish." And he never came back. So, can you imagine how that mother felt, having sent her son to his death? So, she was just racked with grief and self-blame. I talked with her a lot, but I couldn't get her to the point. I think I lifted some of the darkness around her, but I couldn't get her to the point of heading for the light before I left. So, in some ways, with suicide, it feels maybe, I've known a few people who committed suicide who really couldn't take life here anymore. So much depends on the person. If anybody leaves with a lot of very strong unresolved feelings, not only may it hold them around, like I've just described, and make it difficult for them to pass on. It's an illusion to think that we leave everything behind. I kind of laugh because it's just, when you look at things on a bigger scale, things look so different. Like in English, we say, well, rest in peace. Well, we don't rest after we've passed on. It's great to die in peace. Definitely good to pass on in peace. But we're still, we're still alive. We still have life afterwards. So we're not resting. we have lots of things to do, which I'm going to describe soon. So, if we die very troubled, then that can make it difficult to pass on. I knew someone else who was very troubled for a long time, and she died in her 40s. I think she the post-mortem said it was from pneumonia and a lung problem, but I saw her a couple of days before and she wasn't showing signs. I think she kind of willed herself to die. She really gave up inside on a spiritual level. The next stage, for her, she got a lot of help and could resolve a lot of things in the spirit world, which she couldn't resolve here. So for her, maybe it was an okay thing. So let me describe what happens next. So we're around for a varying space of time. Great to have loved ones around. Great if the body can just lie and be peaceful during that time. Then when the spirit's ready, it feels the calling to go higher up towards the light, and there's a welcoming party. When we're in the spirit world, there's lots of different kinds of work, and I know lots of you are in service and you're compassionate people, so you may well get work which is doing that kind of compassionate kind of in service work. So when we go higher, there's actually a welcoming group. There's someone in charge, and they call up, if possible, some familiar spirits, people that the spirit is known on earth, and calls them in. So when you go through, there's a few familiar faces, which of course is comforting when you're in a completely different land and place. You may feel, I've known people even before they pass on, they know who's waiting for them on the other side, who's going to welcome them there, which is very reassuring. And the first thing is you're welcomed. You're made to feel more relaxed, more at home. There are helpful spirits around. You start having a bit of freedom to move around, because in the spirit world we can move by just feeling, okay, I want to go there, and we go there. But we need some spirits around us to support us at that time. Start feeling happy. When we're in this place, some people may be able to come back and visit people on earth. For example, if there's a funeral, they may be able to come back and may feel their presence during a funeral. Funeral is partly for our benefit in letting go of this person, and it is also partly for the spirit, because very often they can be there and we're saying, we love you, what a great lifetime you had, this and this and this was just fantastic about your life. That really helps the spirit who's moved on. It's really helpful for the spirit to hear that. Can you imagine that? Yeah, can you imagine that? How good that would feel, to hear those things. Then the next stage, once we're kind of at home, in the spiritual world, the big agenda for what happens on earth is that we're here to learn. It's like a learning ground, and a big reason why we incarnate into a body is that when we're in a body, we're in this yang form, as opposed to when we're in a yin form in the spirit world, we can learn much faster when we're in a body. Because life is yang. This problem comes, this problem comes, this challenge comes, this opportunity comes. Isn't that what life is like? It's fairly intense. We get ill, we get challenged, we get this happens, we have this opportunity, we do this project, and so on. So this is our opportunity for learning is great here. And so in the spirit world, the next stage that happens is that we're helped to look back on our lifetime and learn as much as we can from it. Okay. I really developed, these qualities. I really developed my hands-on healing. I really developed my compassion, in relationship. I really learned how to form stronger relationships. I really learned how to make things. I learned how to care for people. I learned some great wisdom about what to eat. And let's celebrate the things that we've learned. And also we're helped to look at the things which we didn't do so well. And I really want to emphasize, not in a punishing way. Some people have this idea of a punishing God, which I think really is of people's creation, because that's not my experience of the spirit world at all. It's really a lot of love and light and good intention and wanting to learn. But when we make mistakes in life, if you want to call them mistakes, the important thing is that we learn from them. There are learning opportunities. So we're helped to learn from them. And that's a growing process as well for us. So that might go on for some weeks or months, helped through that process. So again, I'm laughing because we might feel that somehow we can escape from any aspect of our life, but we cannot. Whatever we have done or said is with us until we resolve it, which feels quite tough to me. It's like, nothing do we get away with. Can you feel what I mean? You may feel, well, okay, I haven't told somebody this. I never apologized for this. But I'm going to die now, so that's it. Well, actually, no. And this is one aspect of karma. Whatever we've said and done which is unresolved, we're carrying with us into the spirit world. And if we can't resolve it in the spirit world, then we carry it into our next lifetime. And we frequently do carry big things, from one lifetime to the next, until we often recreate experiences in a future lifetime, so that we're confronted with the same difficulty and the same opportunity to learn. Can you kind of feel that? This is what in English we might call Sod's law. This is not nice. But from my experience of my own and other people's past lives, and feeling into what happens in the healing in the spirit world, this is what we do. If we haven't learned something, we recreate the similar situation in a future lifetime to give us the opportunity to learn it again. In some ways, life is hard. So for me, the lesson from that is, if I've messed up, if there are things for me to learn, I want to do that as much as I can in this lifetime, because this is what we take with us. This work we do on ourselves is what we take with us. It's not our cars, our houses, our photographs, our things which our phones. It's things which a lot of people spend a lot of time focusing on. It's the work we do inside that we take with us. Now I'll just describe the next stage, and then I want to kind of open it up to some questions. So the next stage is we have some freedom. We have some freedom to move around. We can take a holiday. And at some point, most of us find some kind of work to do. It might be close to the earth. It might be helping spirit. It might be being spirit guide to people who are in a body. It might be helping people leaving or coming back. It might be education. There's a lot of education that goes on in the spirit world. Lots of things going on. So we may get a job until the next time, until it's time for us to come back. So I'm wondering if you have any questions from what I've just described.
Yes, Oliver, I do. I was curious how, if you subscribe to some of the non-dual traditions or mystical traditions, that every life is a form of contains suffering, and that the goal of spiritual development is to stop producing any negative or any type of karma, so that we can stop the cycle of rebirth and have our spirit merge with the ultimate, like we're a drop into the ocean. And specifically, I'm thinking about Vedanta and Mahayana Buddhism.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you see that, experienced any understanding of that for yourself.
Well, I feel for me and for nearly all of us, we're a long way off being able to escape that karma of keep coming back and learning. I think from what I kind of read, there are some very evolved spirits who have a lot more choice. They have a lot of choice. They may spend 1,000 or 2,000 years not reincarnating into a body, doing work on the spiritual side. They have more choice. But for me, having been into a lot of past lives and helped other people with that, it feels like that's a way off. So maybe that's a final goal. But my feeling is, let's just deal with what's in front of us. What have I got to learn right now, this day, this month, this year, in this lifetime? Let's just get on with what's in front of us, and that'll get us to where we need to go.
Yeah, well, that's what the Buddha taught his cousin who wanted to discuss metaphysics. He said, "Let's take care of suffering."
Yeah. But this is true, that that life is, I think Buddha said life is suffering. It can also be a lot of joy and happiness and love as well. But there is always suffering, and we need to face that, because that's where our learning is. The more we face our suffering and our sorrows and our sadness, the more joy and happiness we experience.
Yes. To live a life and not generate any karma of any type is a real challenge.
Yeah, I think we're all
positive or negative.
Yeah, we're all a long way off that.
Yeah, if you develop either one, you're going to be stuck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for your question, Alex. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question. Good morning,
yes,
Oliver.
you can. Yes, you can.
Is there a similar cycle for pets? Pets are around people, and do they cycle similarly when they pass?
Yeah. Yes, there is. Yes. Yes. And their spirits look after them. They tend to pass on much more quickly. But similarly, they're spirit guides who specialize in pets and looking after pets and pet spirits until such time as they come back into another life. Yeah. So they have a similar system of soul life, which is very long, and incarnating spirit world. It's a kind of faster rotation. But it's a similar process. And so if we can teach our pets, love and compassion and understanding, then they can take that with them. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And this is partly why they for some of them, why they come as pets, because they want to learn from us. And hopefully they have a good experience and a good learning experience from us. Sometimes pets are very badly treated, and then that produces trauma, and which they maybe take on with them, and they have to resolve it in a future time. Yeah.
I wonder if our incarnation goes along the lines of our vibration. In other words, I'm vibrating right now as a human being, as a Jewish woman, as an American born living in Israel, whatever my vibration. Will I maintain that and return eventually in that energy, in that vibration that I leave with?
Yeah, so that's the kind of second thing I want to talk about. Big thing is that transition of coming back. So let's get to that in a few minutes. Yes, Sylvia.
You have a question? Someone passing with dementia, Patricia asks.
Okay. Yeah, I experienced that with my mother. She had progressive dementia the last 3 years of her life, and I spent quite a lot of time with her every week. Unfortunately, I wasn't there when she passed on, which I felt such deep sorrow about. She seemed to be in good health, and I went on a holiday about 150 miles away, and my brother was living close, and he was there. But what I did was I meditated and kind of contacted her in the spirit world to give her some help. And when up until her death, I was surprised when I first started talking to social workers and so on about her dementia, and the logical brain goes remembering times and dates and how to do things, but the feeling self doesn't, because that comes from a different part of us. It comes a lot more from our heart. And so she was very feeling and actually very loving in that last time in her life. My experience after she died was that she was really confused, because the dementia creates confusion, and so so she was confused and didn't really know what was happening, and she needed quite a lot of help from me and from spirits to help her make the transition. And it was helpful for me to be talking to her and explaining things to her, because I was, she remembered who I was, thankfully, up until when she died. My father really didn't want any help from me. I wasn't very helpful, apart from just being present. But my experience was that once my mother had spent some days or a week, 10 days in the spirit world, she'd become really clear again. That confusion had cleared, and she was back to her kind of sharp, aware self, because she got a lot of help on the spirit side. Yeah, is that helpful? So a lot of healing can happen on the spirit side. Yeah, so that was my experience, that there can be a lot of confusion, and with one or two other people as well, there can be a lot of confusion to start off with.
Oliver, may I ask a follow-up question to that remark?
Yeah, sure.
Apparently, you had your mother pass. The state of confusion was palpable. Did you contact someone, some spirit, to assist your mother to help clear the confusion, or did that just happen straightforwardly?
Well, I talked to her first because, you know, I was what was familiar, you know, and at the end of her life, she only recognized me and my brother. She didn't recognize her carers. So it was just very helpful for her to have me talking to her to start off with. But as quickly as possible, you know, because of course there's spirits waiting around, you know, to be with her and communicate with her. So as quickly as possible, I wanted her to, you know, move on and be with them, so they could start helping her. And it was more just often at that stage of pointing, that's the way to go. Can you feel that? Can you see that place that feels good and welcoming and loving? That's the place you need to go. Yeah. Maybe something else I say, just partly from the question that's come up from Vivian, and is about, you know, feeling spirits coming back. You know, there's that time when they're around in the room where you can often feel their presence really strongly. Then they move on up. Then they have things to do. But once they're kind of more at home in the spirit world, they can come back and visit and kind of make contact. And that depends on a number of things. If they have worked on themselves and they have more freedom, they're more free to do that. If they're more caught up in their own, you know, what's going on with them emotionally and so on, then they may be less able to do that. There may be times when they're dealing, you know, looking at their karma and, you know, working with you know, getting the help with spirit guides. But generally, you know, as more time passes, they have more freedom, and that's why, you know, if we sit and pray for them, or just sit in a place and remember them, then, you know, then they may come to us. But there's a difference at a later time and in that first time. In that first time, when their spirit is still around, they're needing to go to the spirit world, and that's when we don't want to delay them. Later on, they can come and visit us, but they can also, you know, they're more rooted in the spirit world, which is the way it should be. And then we can be happy. We can see them and they come to see us, and you know, we can be happy to feel them and make contact again. But just making sure that we don't cling on to them. We need to let them be free and get on with their journey. And, you know, also from a spiritual point of view, you know, we've come into a life, we have a relationship with our parents, maybe brothers, sisters, cousins, you know, other people. When we go out of this life, of course, we have a strong connection with those people, but we move on. You know, those were the people that we were really close to in this last life, but that's, you know, but then we move on. So those ties, sometimes they stay strong for a long time, and sometimes they weaken. I'm just kind of feeling that, you know, mothers and parents, you know, often, you know, are kind of waiting for their children to come in. Particularly, there's a lot of love there, then of course you want to see your child again, be able to communicate with them freely again. So this is why a lot of traditions have, you know, you send prayers every day. You make an altar, you have photos, you have, you know, some jewelry or possessions of your loved one who's passed on, and every day you give some prayers. I hope you're moving on. I hope you're finding the light. I hope you're finding love. I hope you're, you know, finding a good place to be. I'm sending you love. I'm not attached. You know, I'm letting go of you. I love you. Maybe I'm feeling sadness, whatever you want to share with them. You know, it's very helpful. Yeah, so lots of different traditions. You know, people do that. If you can tune into them, it's even better, because then you know that at certain times they may have quite a big need of contacting you, and at other times they're really happy. They're off. They're enjoying themselves. They don't have a big need to come back, and we don't want to keep bothering them if they've moved on. So again, use your deep intuition as to what's appropriate. I think, you know, a lot of religions have certain things you do at certain times, you know, very useful in many ways. But if you can tune in, you don't necessarily have to stick to those kind of rules. You can just feel what is appropriate now. Okay, I want to move on to the kind of time of coming back in. I'm just aware that we've been going an hour and a half. Should we have like, we can either go straight on, we could just spend 2 minutes stretching together, or we can have a 5-minute pee break. What do you feel you need? I don't know, Ginat, I don't know what you feel is best.
I'm in favor of pee break and 2-minute stretching.
Okay, all right. So let's probably we need 5 minutes if it's going to be a pee break. So just look at your clocks, and let's come back in 5 minutes.
And I will mention that you do have one more question on the topic that you're finishing.
Okay, is it in the chat?
Yeah, it is. About cremation.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, see you back.
I'll come back to that.
Oh, this is easy. It's exactly 1/2 so
Okay.
at 35
right.
past, we'll resume.
All
Great,
right.
thank you, Oliver. Good.
All right, thank you. All right, see you all in 5 minutes.
Ginat, are you there? Ginat?
Okay. All right. Nice to chat for a minute, Ruth. I'll just say that we've I run the International Macrobiotics School, and we've just started a community, a wellbeing community, which you can join for between £5 and £15 a month. It's very cheap. And every month I'm giving there's a recorded talk and a cooking class, and also a question and answer session with me. So if you just have questions and we'll discuss things, then have a look on our website, International Macrobiotics School website, and click on the community button, because I love talking with people, and I love questions and discussions. So if you'd like to, you know, to ask more questions and more discussion, then you know, that would be one way of doing it.
What is pounds to English, Oliver? You said
pounds to dollars.
$2, yeah.
Yeah, I think I can't. Is it 85 cents to £1?
Oh, okay. I'll look at that. I'll look into that.
Yeah. It's.
What is your website, Oliver?
I put the link on the chat.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you.
Okay, so great. You're feeling better in your bodies. One thing about talking about spiritual things is we've got to stay in our bodies. You know, if we're too much in the spirit world and we get you know, we can get ungrounded, and we've got to keep our feet on the ground. Because if we get ungrounded, then we can go off track. Yeah, so it's taken me 35 years to learn that. Yeah, Ginat, you said there's a couple of questions here. So there's one about the cremation experience and about keeping cremated ashes at home versus a cemetery, forest, or ocean distribution.
And also, I would just add to that, cremation versus burial. Is there?
Yeah.
Say?
Yeah.
And also about donating organs.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, maybe I'll just say about donating organs first, which are often taken pretty quickly after the body has died. This really depends on how strong, a person's intention is to want to share their organs. In general, it's best if the body is left in peace until the spirit has completely separated, which may be 3 to 6 hours mostly, but can go on, for 24, even 48 hours. And it's best if the body is not interfered with during that time. A couple of interesting examples from Marion and Sylvia, I think, about disturbing the body and then the spirit coming back. However, if someone in their heart, in their soul, really wants to, deeply in them, not just as a superficial emotional reaction or need, if really deeply in their soul and spirit, really want to share their organs for the good of other people, then when they have passed on, that is going to be much less jarring because they've already made a deep decision that's what they want to do and that's what they're happy with. So it comes down a lot to our intention and our kind of awareness. Then around being buried or cremated, and what happens when what you do with the ashes. These are the kind of physical things. Really, what's more important is what happens on a consciousness level. Burying a body can mean that the body is there for a much longer time. And really what we want a spirit to do is to separate completely from their body and move on. So if they do that, it really doesn't matter whether they're buried or cremated or what happens. Because the most important thing is that they're going to move on. If there's a difficulty with that, cremation may help because there's not a physical body to go back to hang around. But I would say ideally, the spirit moves on, and then it really doesn't make a lot of difference. And then if someone is cremated, and what do you do with their ashes? Again, it really depends on what is in your consciousness with the ashes. If you want to go and spread them in a favorite place of your loved one, then they may come and take part in that, and take and hear that ritual that you're going through of giving thanks to your loved one, being in that place. They get a chance to be in their favorite place again, and it's a nice process for them as well as a nice letting go process for you. Keeping them on your mantelpiece, well, I wonder why one would want to do that. The danger would be if one had some attachment still, which is not helpful for you, and it's not helpful for the spirit who's moved on. If they sit on the mantelpiece and there's no attachment, then what I feel is it really wouldn't matter. Do you see what I mean? So it really is what is happening in our consciousness and what is happening in the spirit's consciousness that is most important. If spirits, and then someone's, Rebecca, if spirits are reincarnating, how do we keep contacting them after they die? Aren't they already reincarnated? People often ask, well, how long is it before we get reincarnated again? it tends to be a bit of a longer time. Typically it's kind of 30 to 100 or 100 plus years. Some people are in a hurry to get back, and some people aren't. So it may be sometimes that it's very rare for people to incarnate within a few years. So if we're wanting to communicate with them, in those few years after they passed on, generally we can contact them. But if it's a long period of time, then yes, they may not be there still. Yeah, that's true. Also, I've known, a spirit that I had a lot of contact with. At a certain point, he went off to work in another part of the solar system, do some other work. So he just disappeared, couldn't communicate with him for quite a number of years. And then later on, he came back again. And he was in this sphere, and then I could talk to him again. So, yeah, different things can happen. Clara, do we get more spiritual as we age? Hopefully. Just going back to really this lifetime is about learning. So a lot of people have written about the different stages of life that, teens and 20s are about getting out, discovering life, exploring the world. 30s, 40s, often we're putting roots down into have family or work, projects. 50s, 60s, kind of coming into our mature years where we have a lot to give out. And 70s, 80s, if we live that long, then we're coming much more into the time when we're going to return to spirit. So I think there's a natural, as part of the cycle, there's a natural becoming really more and more interested in living spiritually or contacting the spirit world as we get older, as we start realizing that's where I'm heading, and I don't have any choice. So maybe I'll start studying the spiritual world a bit more, as I'm going to have to let go of this physical world at some point. Then Judy, you've asked, does our spirit live partially with those organs that were donated? So this raises the question of when our spirit leaves the body, what goes with our spirit and what stays with the body? What goes with the spirit is our kind of soul consciousness. Also, quite a lot on the mental level of our understanding, our knowledge, our beliefs. Some of our emotional side as well goes. A little, and just a fraction of the physical as well. So when we go into another life, we can be carrying a bit of karma over into our body on a physical level, as well as definitely emotionally and mentally. So what is left behind is obviously the physical body, a lot of our emotions. If you sometimes if you're with people when they die, sometimes you may see the expression on their face and the energy from their body change dramatically in the kind of 10 minutes or half an hour after the spirit has left. Because they're no longer showing the spirit is no longer shining through their body. And what is left is their physical body and a lot of the kind of raw emotions. So I was with one man at that time of dying, and before he died, he had such a peaceful, kind of energy. And when he was alive, there was a lot of kindness in him. He thought a lot about other people, but he was also very angry and irritable because of emotional stuff that had happened in his life. And when his spirit died, literally within 10 minutes, his face went from this kind spiritual expression to a really angry, hurt expression. Because that was, his spirit was no longer enlivening, his kind spirit was no longer enlivening his body. Yeah. So so if our organs are donated, the physical health of the organ, and also particularly our emotion, a certain amount of our emotions that we held in whichever part of our body, will go to the next person. And some people who've had heart transplants, have felt this. They felt a lot about that. These new kind of personality traits that come into them. Okay, so let's talk about what happens at the other end of life. So we've been around in the spirit world. We're at home in the spirit world. For one reason or another, it's time for us to come back. Either we start feeling, I really want to come back. I really want to get back on Earth. I really want another lifetime. Or there may be outside influences who are really encouraging us to come back. In the spirit world, they're really trying to create evolution as fast as possible on the Earth. That's why when we tune into our spirit, we can feel urgency, to create change in the world, to wake people up, around food or emotional healing or spiritual practices. Don't you feel that? Yeah, who feels that kind of urgency to create change? Yeah. Because when we tune into the spiritual level, there's this real urgency at this time to create fast change on Earth. Boy, have we got a lot to learn as human beings, don't you think? But really, we have so much to learn. We are really making collectively such a mess and creating so much suffering, and we have so much to learn as humanity. So sometimes the spirit world is very encouraging for us to come back, because there's two reasons for coming back. One is our personal work on ourselves and continuing our journey of learning and development and evolution, and the other is to be in service. So sometimes they will twist your arm and say, look, I know you can do some good help on the Earth, but we want you back there now. But for a combination of those two reasons, I don't know, there may be other reasons, but they're the ones I'm aware of. Either we're feeling, I want to come back, I want another lifetime, I want to have another go. I want to experience being on Earth again, I want to do some more learning. I'm getting a bit bored with floating around up here. I want to get to the nuts and bolts of life again. Or we may be more motivated by coming back in service. And you can maybe feel certain people in your life who are very devoted to service, and that might be a conscious choice to come back more in service. Again, we're helped by a circle or a group of spirits with a leader and various other spirits to help us to clarify what this next lifetime is going to be about. And that may take a bit of time. Well, there's this kind of karma that I'm carrying. I'm still carrying a lot of self-doubt. This is something I'd really like to work on in this lifetime. I was really closed. I was really closed off in my last lifetimes. I really want to learn how to open my heart and contact people more from a heart. My last lifetime or lifetimes, it was like I never really arrived on the planet. It was like I was always trying to escape. This lifetime, I really want to learn to arrive in my body, really be present and really enjoy and be present in this earthly life. You know, all could be all kinds of different reasons, you know, different things we're wanting to learn. Then we're kind of looking down on the earth and we start feeling, so this is kind of coming back to your question, Gannett. We're feeling, okay, well, where am I going to go? You know, I could go back to where I'm familiar, you know, Jerusalem, North America, UK, Far East, you know, anywhere. If that place, that culture is going to give us what we want, or we may choose that area just because it's familiar. It's just like in this lifetime, we're often attracted to things which are familiar, aren't we? So we may choose somewhere just because it's familiar. I've been in this culture before. Yeah, I want to go back there. Then we kind of gradually get closer and we start feeling out, okay, which parents do I want to go to? And also which sex, if possible. We don't have complete or great control over that, but we can, you know, there's some choice there. And then at a certain point we commit, okay, this is who I'm going to. Some mothers or parents feel there's a spirit around for some time, for some weeks before they actually conceive. And at a certain point, there's a fertilized egg, and then, you know, that's the matter that comes from our genes and our food, and then the spirit. You know, we decide, okay, I'm gonna try this one. I'm gonna try getting attached to this fertilized egg, and this is a big transition. We feel our way in. Oh God, this is cramped. It's like there I was, I could move anywhere I wanted, and now I'm just, you know, I'm getting attached to being in this small space inside a human being. It's like, wow, this feels cramped, and there are all these emotions going on in my mother and outside, you know, influencing her, and you know, it's a big transition, and we want to try and give, you know, a new life a nice welcome at that time. You know, let's sing, let's hum, let's feel love. You know, let's give it love. You know, let's say hello to welcome it in. And then, you know, we go through pregnancy. Then birth happens, and I could go into, you know, a lot of these things in kind of more detail, but there's not enough time just in one talk. But the birth time and how the birth happens depends not only on the mother and the mother's health and what's happening around, but often on the baby. Some babies are in a hurry. Some babies don't want to come out. They just say, well, actually, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to come into the world yet. You know? And some people, they're in their character as a child and as an adult are always in a hurry. And others are, whoa, I'm not sure. I'm going to hold back. I'm not sure if I want to be here. Do you know what I mean? So these things can happen from really early. So in my before I incarnated, I had my arm twisted. That's why I maybe felt a bit emotional when I was describing that. I had my arm twisted about coming. And actually, I've had a lot of enthusiasm for life, but there's part of me that just, part of my learning has been to really land and really be in my body, really create loving relationships, really be in the world. You know, there's part of me that for a long time that was just hankering to be in the spiritual world. In my early 20s, I was really interested in spirituality. And really, it was kind of too early in a way. I needed to get into the world. So you can feel there's some people that find it difficult to be on the planet. They find it difficult to be in a body. And they're often hankering to be more back in the spirit world. So something has happened, something they brought with them, or something happened around that incarnation time. maybe they finally got into the body, and then they kind of felt, actually, I'm not so happy with this mother or these parents, or what's going on around me, but I haven't got a choice. Do you kind of see what I mean? Some people ask, well, is everything perfect? Some people have the attitude, well, if it's happened, it's perfect. The parents I came to must be perfect for me. Other people say, well, it's all chance. It's kind of in between. We make our best choice. Sometimes we make a good choice. Sometimes we make a poor choice.
What's the significance of the cord being around the neck and then necessitating a C-section?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that, has, why that has come about, whether it's more to do with the mother or whether it's more to do with the baby. I'm not sure about that. But I think from a spiritual point of view, whatever we've been given, we can make use of and be grateful for. Then we go through our childhood. These intentions that we have come into this lifetime kind of get buried. We're just learning to be here and how to walk and feed and socialize. And what would be most helpful during our childhood, the most useful education would be, who is this person? And what are their gifts? And what are they really wanting to do on the planet? And of course, learning to read and write and add up numbers is really useful in order to be able to navigate life. But really, the most important thing is, what does this person want to do in this lifetime? And there's a lot of social pressures which take people away from that. Kind of modern Western education system, which is very intellectual. Society, which is, the most important thing is earning money, status, getting a good job, blah, blah, blah. It sounds people who have I've met a lot of people who have a great job, well paid, but hate it, and they give it all up to do something only earning a quarter of the amount of money because it makes them happy. They're finding their path. And maybe some of you have done that. It's like it gets so painful going on doing what you think you should be doing, when actually your heart and your spirit is saying, I really want to be doing something completely different. So important to follow our heart, because this is how we, you could say, our soul voice, because this is how we make really good use of this lifetime. And of course, there are constraints financially and in other ways. So someone has asked, the grandparents are there for just that, to assist the child to determine which path is calling. I love that. That didn't really happen with my grandparents, but I love that idea that grandparents are there to help the child become who they really are. Thank you for that. Wish you had grandparents. Yeah. I just had two who both died when I was quite young. So I didn't get a lot of that influence. A lot of people move around these days, don't they? Instead of the parents and the grandparents and the relatives all being around to help raise the children. So that's kind of our process of coming back. And then what can happen is, as an adult, at some point, we start feeling into what is it I actually need to do in this lifetime. This may not be like what I need to do my whole lifetime, but what do I need to do next? I need to make a change. I need to write a book. I need to move somewhere else. I need to study something. I need to be with some different people. You get these deep feelings, and they're really important to listen to, because this is what takes us towards fulfilling what we've come to do. Often that is a very uncomfortable path. because part of our work is to learn things which are uncomfortable or difficult. So we have an inner conflict between, this is what I feel I really should be doing, what I'm really drawn to, but this feels really uncomfortable. This feels like a really difficult decision. So we need to work with that and process that until we can accept going ahead with what we really need to be doing. Can you kind of relate to that? What I'm trying to do is kind of talk about, from a kind of, you could say, from a spiritual point of view, what it's like for us being in this life, and the kind of what we're facing, and what, how this spiritual perspective can help us make good decisions in this life. So I want to do a few minutes meditation again to help us contact. Well, let me say something else first. One of the most important things in life is to contact, get more in touch with what are these deep things that I really have come to do in this lifetime. There's a few different ways. One way, which I use every year and I suggest to a lot of people, is around about New Year, midwinter. This is the time of water, reflection. Write down all the most important things that happened last year, all the really good things, all your accomplishments, but also some of the difficult things which didn't go well. And then feel out, what have you got to learn from them? And when you finish with that, look at the next year, or if you want 2 or 3 years, and just feel deeply in yourself, what are the most important things that you want to do or to happen in the next 1, 2, or 3 years? Really good to meditate before you do this. Really get, like we did at the beginning, or whatever meditation you use, really get in touch with your deep self and ask yourself, what are the most important things that I want to do, or I want to happen in the next year or so? Really get it into your brain and into your heart and into your body. These are the most important things. And then work out how you might create those. Sometimes it might be easy to create those things. Sometimes it might be difficult. But if you can create them, it is what creates a real deep satisfaction and contentment with how your life is going. So that's one way. Let's just do a kind of mini version of that right now. So again, I want you to put pens and paper down if you've got them, and just sit back and relax. Take a few deep breaths down into your abdomen, grounding yourself in your body. And then take a few deep breaths into your heart. If it helps, you can put one hand on your heart and take some more long, deep breaths, bringing fresh energy into your heart. Keep breathing into your heart and your belly, dropping down into your body and into your feeling self. Notice how your head is becoming quieter and quieter. And in a minute, I'm going to ask a question. And I want you to listen to your deep self, your soul, your deep intuition for the answer. Don't go into your head. Just feel, or just wait for the feeling or the answer to come to you. And then don't think about it. Just observe what comes. So, first question is, on your life journey, what was your most important accomplishment in the last year? What was the most important thing you accomplished or achieved in the last year? So make a mental note of that, so you remember it. And let's ask another question. What is the most important thing for me to do or to accomplish in 2024? And make a mental note of the answer so you remember it. And then one more question. To accomplish this thing in 2024, what is the first step, the first practical step I need to take? And make a mental note of the answer. And then coming back into the room that you're in. If you want to write the three answers down, you can do. Number one, the most important thing you accomplished or achieved in the year that's just gone. And the second question is, what's the most important thing you want to happen or create in 2024? And the next question was, what's your first step? Actually, which might be inwardly, taking a decision, making a commitment, or it might be doing something practically. So this is a taste of how you can get in touch with your deeper self, to get your life, to recognize your accomplishments and where you've got to so far, and also where do you want to go next? What's the most important thing to happen next? And you can do this. You can ask any question you like, and usually the answer will come from your heart or from your deep self, from your deep intuition. Sometimes it may have to wait before it can give an answer, but this is how we tap into our deep intuition. This is how we need to shape our life. So how was that meditation? Is there anyone who'd like to share their answer to one or two of those questions? If you need to keep it private, that's fine. But if anyone feels happy with sharing, it would be great to hear. I saw you nodding, Judy. I wonder if you'd like to. I just have to unmute.
There.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. It's all about work for me. So the most important thing I achieved in 2023 was establishing myself in my court reporting field to the highest degree I have ever had. I've been in it for 10 years, but I've really become successful in it. And I work with an agency that is very important to me. And also found, it seems like I found all this stuff, found a transcriber that I really needed badly, and never knew I could be so successful by these two things: the new agency I discovered and the transcriber I discovered. And then number two is what I want in 2024 is to perpetuate this, to keep you just perpetuate it and hopefully improve it if I can. And there is a way. It pulls me into number three, which is something I've had on a list for many, many months, and I don't know why I don't get to it and do it. It's not that hard. Is I need to call and discover, perhaps on Google, more legal transcribers that would be available to me, so I can establish my own business more fully and where it should be, not where it should be.
Yeah.
So it's all about work for me. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. So was that clarifying for you? Was it helpful?
Very. And I would love to do this with other things.
Yeah.
With relationships and with other things. I can't wait.
Yep. So you can do all this, on your own. Just meditate, breathe into your body, ask yourself the questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. You can ask any question you like. Before I got into this, I used to get into the most terrible problems trying to make decisions. I write lists of all the pros and cons of that decision, all the pros and cons of that decision. Then which one am I going to choose? And still, sometimes I still couldn't decide. And then I discovered, about just asking my heart, what I need to do in lots of different situations. It's just so simple. It's life much, much simpler. And you just feel much more on track. Your life moves forwards more.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think I talked about the two transitions, and a certain amount about how we can make good use of our life that we're in right now. So I feel we've been going a long time, so I'd be really happy to answer any kind of last questions you have, and then for a few minutes or 10 minutes, and then I think we probably need to finish. So does anybody have questions?
I'd like to, if we have a moment,
Sure.
go back to the beginnings. And how did you and Michio find each other? Had you known each other in previous encounters? Had you studied under him before? Things like that.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. The first time I met him was in 1980. A friend said, he's giving a talk in London, why didn't you go? It was my first introduction to macrobiotics. But the philosophy of yin and yang and energy and the connection between the spirit world and the physical world just blew me away. And then I became a student of his. So yeah, I didn't have a connection with him before that I've ever been aware of, but I felt a strong connection with the philosophy and the holistic nature of it. I was a scientist. I did a degree in zoology. You're just studying physical matter. Spirit is something else. Emotions are something else. And here he was. He had this system where everything is connected, and it just blew me away. Still we live in a society where spirit and matter are disconnected. George Sauer's spiral of materialization and out again, describes how everything is connected. Now I learn a lot from channeling, and now I find it very easy. I do a lot of, sometimes I talk and sometimes I just type. So I've got questions about things. So I get a lot of learning from the spirit world, which is really handy. And so it's something I used to teach people how to get in touch with spirit guides. But there's other people around doing it probably more effectively than me. If you want to contact your spirit guide, have a look around. There are people that that can help you do that, and then you can start just bringing through. Getting. They're like mentors, and occasionally they kick your ass as well. They don't just lovingly give you lots of nice information. Occasionally they kick your ass and say, well, actually, you've got to sort this difficulty out yourself. You've got to find your own answers. You've got to pull your finger out here. You've sat on this one too long. Pull your finger out, get on with it. You're not facing this like a proper mentor. That's my experience. Yeah, any other questions?
I have a question. Can I ask you? Good evening.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's very popular today to talk about generational trauma. Is that connected? Like, for example, can I be soul of my grandmother? Because I also live in Israel, and now, as you know, we're at the war, and it's a lot of things to get triggered. And I feel a lot of emotion and a lot of fear doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to me. So, do you think generational trauma, and it's something like in reincarnation? So, for example, my grandmother who died very young in 1942, who experienced the war, can I be her soul?
Sorry, I missed the last few words that you said.
Can I be reincarnation of my grandmother who passed away in 1942?
I think that's pretty unlikely, but I think what you're talking about, generational karma, is being recognized a lot in psychotherapy and emotional counseling. That when we're growing up, we pick up on emotions and beliefs from our parents and people around us a lot. This is what forms our emotional life and our belief system. And the way we see the world a lot from our parents and the people around us. And who did our parents get it from? They got it from their parents and the community or society they were living in. So a lot of this comes into us.
I understand, but I was just thinking, I understand exactly what you say. Yeah. I'm learning now trauma myself with Mati Gabor, but at the same time, I think it would be just easy explanation if I know I'm a part of my grandmother's soul, and that would explain my simple then generational trauma. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that may be possible. I've never come across someone who has reincarnated from a parent or grandparent yet, so I think it's very unusual.
It's not working like that, right? It doesn't work like that.
I can't say that it would never happen, but possibly it can do. But in having worked with a lot of people, I've never come across that. So I think it's pretty rare.
Is that just one more second? Is that the same related, for example, if like my husband could be my brother in previous life and my brother could be my husband in previous life? Is that possible?
Yes, that is more possible. Yeah. Because sometimes, as in this life, we often are attracted to things which are familiar or things that we have a connection or an attachment to. So it is true that we sometimes connect with people or attracted to people that we've known before. Yeah. So those things can happen. Or sometimes we may have a friend who feels exactly like a brother or a sister, because actually we have been related to them in the past.
Yeah, same too.
And if you want to know these things, then the thing to do is, the meditation we did of really going deeply into yourself and then asking yourself these questions to find out the truth of these things for yourself.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, any other questions?
Excuse me, this isn't really a question.
Okay.
This is, hi, thank
Hi,
you for an excellent talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
But this is to address the previous question about the soul. My brother, my cousin, my brother and someone, a distant cousin, we found out when we moved near them. They were really good friends. And then I met somebody later on who those three guys were all related.
Mm-hmm.
I found out when the mother of the third guy contacted me to do her family tree. I'm just telling you this, that they were born within 3 weeks of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, did one soul, colossally big soul, die? And they never met. Well, two met, and they were best friends, my brother and the other distant cousin. But the third, they never met, and they were all born within 3 weeks in Massachusetts. Okay.
Interesting.
That's all.
I'll just kind of say one thing in reply. I mean, there's so many different things that happen, and I've done things like going to the end of my last life and then tracing all the stages I went through into the spirit world, and then what I did in the spirit world, and then tracing my journey back here. And I've guided other people through those kind of things as well. So, this is how I do, explore what happened. But some of the things I've experienced is when people incarnate, all kinds of things happen. Like sometimes people make a pact, two people come together, and because they have similar intentions and they just want to be together in the next life. So they try and work it that they're going to be together in their next earthly life. So, things like that can happen. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Do we always incarnate as infants, as newborns?
You mean as a human being?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. Again, I've heard people talk about humans reincarnating into more evolved animals, but I've never come across that myself.
And what about incarnating into a mature adult?
I'm not quite seeing how you might envision that happening. Because really, life is created by a physical body and spirit coming together. I always remember years ago, a cat brought in this beautiful bird and its head was at one side. And I thought, oh, its neck's broken, it's going to die. And its head kind of perked up, and I can feel energy because I've done a lot of shiatsu and stuff. And then its head dropped. Obviously, it just died. And I just felt this whoosh of energy leave its body. So life is created by a body and spirit together. You can't have a live body with no spirit in it. If that happens, then a mother will have a miscarriage. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, maybe if that were to happen, a different spirit could come in and replace the one that's leaving.
Yeah,
it's kind of a theoretical question.
Yeah, I can't say it's impossible, but I've never come across it.
Yeah,
I guess it's pretty rare. Okay, so just to finish off with, I just want to tell you a little bit about what I do here. I run the International Macrobiotics School. I've been teaching macrobiotics for about 35 years. I also ran a shiatsu school for about 25 years. And we run a range of self-help courses, both here in Devon in the UK, and also quite a lot online. I run a 6 steps course, more about health. We also have a YouTube channel with quite a lot of recordings from me and cooking classes and things on. So if you put in International Macrobiotics School into YouTube, I'm actually halfway through preparing a series of 6 or 8 talks on this subject, but going into quite a lot more detail and depth, which will be available on our website probably in January. End of January. So if you're interested in doing some study, do check out our online courses. We also run a 3-year in-depth program. First year is about 30 days, really just learning all the basics for people's more own use. Second year, same length, for people to train as a health coach and a fantastic chef, macrobiotic whole food chef, and also in basic well-being shiatsu. And the third year is really in-depth course, is longer in giving macrobiotic health consultations from a holistic point of view. In the last, since COVID, we've been running the first and the second year mostly online. So if you're in Florida or at a distance and you'd like to do some in-depth study of macrobiotics, Doin exercises, the meridian system, oriental medicine, oriental diagnosis, 5 transformations, cooking, understanding your health, meditation, basic emotional healing, very holistic course. Then our next mostly online course runs from February until July, online, 17 days. And then in August, we have an 8-day intensive here in Devon, so that we can do a lot of practical stuff, a lot of practical cooking and dough-in and so on. If people really can't make the intensive, then we do most of it online so that you can join in. But we ask people if they can make it to make it, because it's just great to get together as a group and learn things in a very practical way. So yeah, so if you do check out our courses. And also I mentioned earlier, we've just started up a macrobiotic wellbeing community for very low cost, and each month you get a talk from me on a whole range of different subjects, a cooking class, a support group run by one of our staff here, Charlene. Good if you're wanting support, if you're lonely in your macrobiotic practice, you'd like to be able to talk to other people. And then a question and answer session with me, where you can just ask anything you want, so we just started last month, went really well, lots of really interesting questions in the question and answer. Yeah, so if that's useful for you, then check that out on the website under community. Okay.
Alice has an interesting question on the chat.
Okay. When you die, do you come back as a moth or roach to visit loved ones? Probably not a roach. I think I have to say I don't really know the answer to that. You know, I know quite a few mythologies or beliefs in different parts of the world are that sometimes that can happen, that a spirit can just kind of partly inhabit an animal or a bird and come back and visit. But I've no experience of that, so I can't say whether it's true or not. But who knows? What happens in the spirit world is weird and wonderful, and a lot of things are possible. Yeah. Yeah. Anything? Any other questions? Yes, Sylvia. Just have to unmute. I think she was.
I wanted to clarify something about suicide. As some people are born with suicidal ideation, irrespective of the events that make the life worse as it progresses. And this occurs when they have been murdered in a previous life, especially more than one lifetime. And it happens because killing oneself is less terrifying than waiting to be killed.
Okay.
If somebody's like been burned at the stake or hacked apart by knives, they won't want to wait around for the next event.
Yeah.
It's easier to kill yourself. And they will create a life that supports suicide.
Yeah, I think that is definitely an example of something that could be true. When I was doing a lot of past life healing for other people, it was amazing how many lifetimes ended violently. And the trouble is, when a lifetime ends violently, there's no time to resolve the emotions and the fears and the consequences in that lifetime. And so we tend to bring them with us, and it can have a very big impact on what we carry into this lifetime. Yeah. I really agree. Yes.
I also want to mention that there's different teachings about the length of time between incarnations. And I was taught that it can happen, that it's subsequent to violent, unexpected death, that the essence that took that body is just so terrified of the being disembodied that it would right away look for mating humans to find a form again and do this willy-nilly without any review of the life experience. And in this way, billions of people are created, but it's like a mechanical process. And the essence is almost absent from it, except it's become terror that has to be embodied because it just can't bear it.
Yeah. Okay. Again, I couldn't say that that's. I've never come across that. Whether that happens sometimes, I couldn't really say. I suspect that there has to be some process of going in the spirit world, because there are some kind of rules, a bit like there are rules which govern how our body, what happens to us in this lifetime. There are some rules about what can and can't happen in the spirit world. So I don't think it can be in a matter of days or weeks. There has to be a process of going into the spirit world before that reincarnation process is possible. But yeah, maybe sometimes people are in a desperate hurry and kind of force it to happen too rapidly.
And they can miss their family so much that they would watch for openings to come back into that family.
Yeah.
And I think that can occur in much shorter periods of time than 100 years. The potential exists.
For sure. Yes, some people are in a hurry and come back sooner. Other people are less in a hurry. And as people become more evolved, they have a lot more choice, and they may not come back for hundreds or even thousands of years. Okay. One last question, or should we finish there?
Well, Evelina has raised her hand.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks very much. And I arrived late, but I do have a two-part question.
Okay.
One is, if you would, I live in a very watery place. And so I've wondered about burial at sea. That's one thing. And the other thing I've wondered about, and this comes out of a health thing rather than a suicide thing, I've thought that I want a way out that would suit me in this body. So the two things that I've thought of, and I don't have either really in line, but like a plant, like eating a plant that would help me to cross over to death, or water, walking into water. I'm a nine fire person. It would be kind of great to go out with water, but the water up here is really cold. I'm not sure I could walk into it with weights on my feet. But both things, burial at sea and the idea of a way to help yourself to die that would not be coming from a suicidal point of view exactly.
Yeah. So what is your question exactly?
Your thoughts on any of that?
I think if you contact your deep self and you ask what do you really want and what would really give you peace, that's where the answer will come from. What you're talking about, I think, is very different to people killing themselves because they're in a lot of pain, emotional pain or physical pain. It's more a matter of choice. And I think the time that people pass on can definitely depend partly on their choice about whether they're wanting to go on living or whether they want to leave. So if really in the depth of your heart, you feel that you reach a time that you want to pass on and you want something to help you with that, then I don't see that there's any kind of violence towards yourself. I think you'd want to check up with your loved ones that they were fully aware and they were fully aware that this is your decision and this is what is going to make you happiest. And you may need to spend some time talking with them to overcome any kind of feelings that they have. Because generally in life, one wants to not do harm to oneself or to other people. So you want to minimize any harm that could come from you choosing that course of action. And if that's your choice, the feeling I'm getting from you is that you would do it with really full awareness and a lot of gracefulness and a lot of kind of beauty, and you have a big heart and you could really make that good with those who love you. You could really help them understand that this is what you want to do and have them accept that through because they love you.
Thank you. Thank you.
How does that all sound?
That sounds right to me. I don't have any immediate plans at all. And I have two sons that I would very much want them to be us to be in alignment if I were ever in that situation. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. And about if I die in bed and I wanted to leave instructions to be taken out to the water and dropped in the water, is that different from being buried in the earth? I mean, it's different, but is it karmically different or something?
I don't think so. I mean, my immediate thought is you want to work out the practical question of what's going to happen with your body. Is that lawful? Can you do that lawfully or not? I know in the UK that wouldn't be lawful. You have to get permission if you're going to put your body, buried in your garden or in a body of water, and you've got to think about, well, who would find your body? What would happen to your body?
Right. It is lawful where I live, and I know of somebody who did that. And there's like crazy rules, like they have to make a metal box with holes in it, and you go in that box, and then you get on the boat and go out a certain distance in the water, and then they drop you off. So there is a legal procedure. I live in Alaska in the US. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So then there's a way of doing that if you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
It's what gives you it's whatever gives you peace
and
the feeling that you can move on easily.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think those are the guides. What gives you peace and what would help you move on easily.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
Good luck with that. Good luck. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I feel like that was really a thoughtful question and a way for us to conclude this evening, other than just really heartfelt thanks to you, Oliver. You're a scholar and a gentleman. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Ginette. Yeah. Well, I really love talking about these things because it just feels so important, this aspect of our life, and it just comes very easily. So I really thank you all for giving me the opportunity to talk about these things again. And let's pay attention to our spirits. Let's stay true to our spirits. The most important thing in life. Let's stay true to our spirit. Norio, I was really touched by what you said. Your guiding principle was to look at arrogance. Just that is that deep learning, that we're here to do.
Thank you, Oliver.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
my children and I, we have no problems looking at that, talk about it, and joke about it. And it's not something that's very, very heavy at all.
Okay, great.
Because birth and death, it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing to be. There's nothing to fear.
Yeah. Thanks, Maria.
It's here in Israel, we have a war going on, and we send our young men out to fight and die, and then we mourn them when they do that. And it's kind of split energy. It's either we train them.
You've just gone quiet. I don't know what happened.
Oh, can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Ginette.
Unmute yourself.
Oh, there you go.
You're muted, Ginette.
Something must have disconnected. Okay, maybe that's the we've been going a long time. I think that's the time to finish. Let's send our prayers to everyone, to these places of conflict in the world. Let's pray for these spirits. May they find peace. May they travel on and learn and find peace. And let's see if we can individually create more peace in the world.
Amen.
And
Thank
amen.
you.
Yeah. Amen.
Okay,
Thank
wonderful.
you very, very much.
Wonderful to spend time with you all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Was that you? Was that you?
Could Norio say a few words about his journey? Would that be possible?
Well, there's not much. I did. It's all a discovery, and I can't say. I'm just grateful for the whole journey.
Yes, of course.
And you know, and I had a tumor behind my left knee, and which became a crater. And so every morning I just say thank you, Mr. Crater. And you know, yeah, I have wonderful family and friends that provided a lot of space. So yeah, and I started from ground zero. I realized that I don't know what any of this is about. I just had to be totally open and not reject anything.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, for myself, it didn't feel at all this way, but we make rules for ourselves, and nothing wrong with rules, including ways of eating, and I'm very familiar with that growing up around the ideas, but I threw all that out as well, which doesn't mean that I was unconscious about it. It's just I was willing to look at anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the quote from your father about arrogance?
It was George Osao. He said that there's only one disease, and he called it arrogance. And he's all disease is just a symptom of that one disease. And and so therefore, the way I looked at all this is there really isn't such thing as cancer or heart disease or whatever. These are just symptoms of the one disease. So and I don't look at it like something like I did something, now I've got the cancer. I see birth and death as a single movement, and that in our intellect we play in time in the temporal world, and so in playing in the temporal world it appears there's duration, and then with the way in which we've been conditioned, we divide that duration into separate events, but in fact birth and death is a single event, and you know, nothing wrong with dividing them up into different events, but that's you know, that's one of the ways we play. You know, so otherwise we wouldn't be able to set up time and say, hey, let's get together on Sunday over Zoom, whatever. So but that's then a conceptual layer on top of the way, that's a way of playing. So to me, the idea that the cancer is cured is not, I don't see it that way. It's because there wasn't a disease in the first place. Disease was a interpretation from the arrogance or whatever, and so it's just one flow. That's how I anyway, my interpretation.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that that's correct. It's not. It's just
we hear you.
Yeah.
And you feel you healed your arrogance. Is that what you're saying?
Well, another thing George Osao said is that's the one incurable disease. So I can't, and I have to say I can't say I cure that.
Well, you must have.
I'm not claiming that one.
Yeah. Did you gain weight with this keto way of eating? Did you gain weight?
Yeah, I did. I went at my worst. Well, it was touch and go last year a couple times, and my kids gathered around. They thought my time in the physical form was giving out soon. So, but since I started the keto, it's turned around,
Yes.
and I gained weight. I went down to 100, under 14 pounds.
Oh boy. And what are you now, if I may
Well,
ask?
well, the commitment I made to Dr. Yu, he suggested I do this for 2 years, and I mean, I'm not used to eating all this meat and dairy,
Yeah.
but I had adapted to it immediately, and felt within a week I felt so much better, and so 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 2 years is January 2025. So
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to, I'm willing to commit to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, fabulous for you. Fabulous. God bless and wonderful. And what do you, I'm just curious, what do you weigh now? You were down to 1 to 14. Now you're
I'm at about 131.
beautiful.
So yeah,
Wonderful.
I could use a few more pounds, but
Great commitment. Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate everyone's support.
Yeah.
All of your energy and support as well.
Yeah. Great work. Great healing. Hopefully you'll have another session with us.
Yeah. Okay, thank
That
you.
would be, thank you. Thank you.